Welcome to another JJ in the Field. Timely agronomic tips when you need them most. I'm Jonah Johnson. Today I'm here in Auglaize County looking at some wheat, and this is the time of year for us here in 2021. We're in the third week. A little behind in some regards. If you think about last year at this time, we were probably a lot of fungicide applications already occurred. We had a lot of heavy freeze damage to wheat heads last year. Right now we're just going into the flowering stage, and across Ohio, depending on the latitude you're at, most wheat in northern latitudes of Ohio is just in that boot stage, so about Feeks growth stage 10. And then down near the river we have wheat that's full head emergence, very similar to this beautiful wheat field behind me here today. And so as we get to this time of year, there's a lot of questions that ask, what is my growth stage in my wheat? I'm interested in applying a foliar fungicide. When is the proper timing for that? What's the disease potential out there right now? And so as we dive into that, the last couple of weeks, obviously it's been very cold, and so the cold injury question has not stopped yet. But from what I've seen, there's minimal cold injury to our wheat crop. It's a very resilient crop for the most part, and we're in better shape, and I think this year than we were last year at this time. And so as the crop gets into that Feeks growth stage 10.5.1, that's when you start to see the anthers emerge in the center of the wheat head. That's the initial timing way we want to start targeting our fungicide application. So that is specifically for the head scab disease. And so that can, if we have a bad head scab year, we can also have DON, the acronym for deoxynivalenol, which is the vomitoxin, which we don't want in the grain. Now this is the same disease as gibberella ear mold or stalk rot in corn. So if you have farms or fields that are adjacent to your wheat fields, or even the remote area or across the street, what have you, those spores can travel from residue and build up in our wheat crop. Hence why we don't recommend planting wheat after corn or vice versa. So when we talk about what is my growth stage, so like I mentioned prior, wheat can vary in its growth stage across Ohio. So when we look at this plant here, I pulled this head out, and this was probably a tertiary, a third tiller lower in the canopy. You can see that the head is just emerging, coming out of the boot, and it's not uncommon to see some of this head like protruding and busting out of the boot stage when we had some of these cold interactions that we have experienced. But as you look at this from this side, you can see that we're in that Feeks growth stage 10, or that full boot stage. The awns are starting to protrude up here, so the head is beginning to emerge with these awns coming out the top. Now as that head starts to emerge, and so if I pull a head now that is fully emerged, you can see we have full flag leaf emerged, where we have the ligule like a collar on your shirt that's officially snapped. So that is the last leaf. But if you picture my hand here as the boot, so this area right here, as that comes out, this would be, if you go by the decimal system, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, 4, and then when we get to this full head emergence, we're at the 10 Feeks growth stage 10.5. Now for the next decimal place you may hear about is when we enter the reproduction phase. And so when we begin to see anthers start to emerge, when they first start is in the center of the head. That is the 0.1. So Feeks growth stage 10, 0.5 for full head, 0.1 for anthers emerging here in the center. Feeks growth stage 10.5.2 is when we have anthers here and anthers on top. Then 0.3 is when they emerge on the bottom and have full flowering, full anthias of that wheat head. So that would be that growth stage of Feeks 10.5, 0.1, 0.2, or 0.3. And so in regards to that fungicide application, we want to target when we're at 10.5.1, anthers in the middle, and we can be a couple days late once you start to get in the full head pollination, and that's fine with like the Carumba and Fusarium. But in regards to the Mervis Ace, we can actually be at this stage right now, as their label says, and data would suggest similar protection from the disease when applied at this growth stage. But for most of us, we wait till we get at that 10.5.1 for 50% or more of the field, and sometimes that's hard to predict across the field. So it's kind of the law of the averages and trying to do the best that you can in regards to a successful fungicide application. And so once we reach this timing of applying our fungicides, growers are also concerned, did I have any foliar diseases out there? And it's been a pretty light year on that as well because of the cool, dry conditions we've had here. For the most part, it was wet last week, but still it was cool. So we didn't have that humidity to stir up the disease spores to spread and get bad. Now, one thing to watch out as we move forward to the end of this week, we're looking at very high temperatures. So it's going to be a big about face, and we're going to be up in those high 80s for most of Ohio. So if we get a pop-up thunderstorm over the weekend and we get some humidity built into canopy, disease potential can build up very quickly. And so as that happens, Ohio State University with Purdue, Penn State, and others contribute to the wheat scab prediction tool that we can provide the URL for. But you can go on there, go for your area in Ohio, click on there, and it'll give you a prediction of what the scab risk assessment would be for your area. And so when we get some canopy built up down here within our wheat field, and we're in the middle of flowering, which as we get to this, we start flowering. It typically takes 3 to 5 days for flowering, maybe a little bit longer, as long as it's not very hot. But afterwards, that's that time frame where scab, that infection can occur, because anytime you have like an open wound in your skin, you have a fresh cut and you roll around the dirt, that's an entrance for those bacteria to enter in your body. Same when we're into a flowering stage. That's a direct vector that disease can get into our plants. And so when that happens, that's when we look at fungicides to help suppress head scab infection. So fungicides are meant as a suppression tool. So if you talk to plant pathologists, we're best at 70-75% suppression, and that with the fungicide and with a more scab tolerant wheat variety. And so that being said, scouting is important. We watch the weather, and we're right on that threshold of applying fungicides very, very soon. And so as you're walking your fields trying to make that decision, again, it's better to be a little bit later on your fungicide applications. Some common fungicides used, Fusarium, for example, is a dual mode triazole. We have Carumba, which is a single mode, but both very good, very similar performance in disease suppression. A new chemistry to the game, Syngenta's Moravis Ace. It touts and has data, Ohio State just published this week as a reminder, showing that you could go a little bit earlier, right before when you get to that 10.5, the full head emergence, and still have rather similar performance going early. But if you're a little bit later than early, we've had better results. Now, other questions, can I do an early, like the full head emergence, or just starting flowering and then follow that up by another application? The answer is you can, but the results of the data of universities have not shown a big benefit to that this time. The last big question we've been getting is, if you've been watching the wheat markets, wheat has a very good profit potential here in 2021. And if you think about coupling that with dual crop or double crop soybeans, and we have a good crop from there, the income potential on that acre is looking very, very good this year. So the growers ask, what can I do to push my wheat right now? And so there's several things you can do. So foliar nutrition can couple with the foliar fungicide and get a nice response. So anything that has a low salt formulation, a low rate of nitrogen in the urea type form, if you're looking at some zinc, some organic acids, and maybe copper, specifically copper is very good at helping that plant suppress disease. With that, if you have additional questions, feel free to follow up with your local ASA or anybody on the PCT team. For JJ in the field, I'm Jonah Johnson. Thanks for watching.